He has to resist a groan as he walks into the bar. Yes, he was told everything about the plan, and the only thing he had to keep secret was that it was a plan. Be honest, be open, and be ready for the freakout. It wasn't a good idea to deck a superior officer, but the temptation was there. Still, it was better to go into this knowing that there'd be problems. "Do you have something maybe twice as strong as a centrist special?" he asks. And the insect woman womaning, the bar gives him an odd look. "Are you one of those humans?" she asks, and he nods. "Okay, I'll need you to sign this," she says as another woman takes a deep and immediate interest. He doesn't pay attention as she saunters up, her red and black gown designed to emphasize just how ripe she is. "Ma'am, I don't know what you want, but I don't think I can do whatever it is," he says plainly, turning to face her as he finishes the paperwork. "You don't think you can do it? Come on, little man, the axiom's strong even if you think the DNA isn't. I could easily give you a loving daughter." She cooed down at the little human. To her eyes, he was a well-seasoned member of his kind, with a fair amount of white mixed into his brown hair and a tightening around his eyes even at the best of times. She drank this in as she recalled that they'd arrived on Centris just some weeks ago to open official communications. So many men they'd managed to increase the amount of males on the planet by 25%. And this was one ship. One ship. She was going to get lucky tonight, come hell or red wind. "Ma'am, look, I'm flattered that you think I'd be a good partner, but there are some problems." He begins, and it's all she can do to resist rolling her eyes as she brings up her drink to her lips with her lower left arm. It's probably some silly bub kiss about her being an insect and him a mammal. Like it really mattered? With the axiom, her eggs would grow anyways. "I'm not going to eat your head, darling. I may have evolved from such a murderous species, but I assure you, the only eating is something you'll love." She croons, and he seems to flush. Ah, she's getting to him. This'll be in the bag good and quick. "Ma'am, please, call me Misty," she chirps at him. He sets down his drink and swallows before looking up at her with a glare. "Ma'am, fuck it. I'm asexual. I don't have the urges you're aiming at. The very idea of sticking the place where my piss comes from into the place where your piss comes from disgusts me in ways that galactic trade cannot convey," he says with a harsh snarl as she almost recoils at the sheer toxicity in his tone. "What?" she asks, as the bar goes very, very quiet, confirming her suspicion that the entire bar was listening in. "No sexual urges? What is wrong with him? Should she call an ambulance? Is he sick? Has he been struck with a terrible curse? Do his pants cover brutal scars and terrible wounds? Furthermore, even if I had those urges, my family's tendency to cancer took care of that some 15 years ago. Meaning that when I had to choose between the testicles I never used or my life, the choice was obvious. Now could you please direct your focus to someone that won't be straight up disgusted by it?" "You've what?" the drin womaning the bar demands in shock as someone drops their drink and it crashes to the floor. "I'm calling an ambulance," one of the other patrons exclaims. "I'm fine," he protests. "No, you are not. You are going to the hospital if I have to fly you there myself," Misty states, poking at him with one of her blade arms. As she's not focusing any axiom into the weapon, it fails to draw any sort of blood from the clearly delirious male. Very clearly delirious, as he swats away her blade arms with the flat of his fleshy palm. "They'll be here in 10 minutes. The call from the bar had gone through. "Screw this! I came here to unwind, not to be dragged into this madness," the man says, making to leave, but Misty simply grabs onto him. Then he goes utterly berserk, wrenches himself out of her grip, and makes for the door. Two parts of a young six, part Lydris, get into his way, and he rolls along their grasping arms to shoulder the door open and make it into the street. The rest of the Lydris soon chases him out as Misty and several other patrons give chase. Fuck, 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 fuck! Well, it's not like this wasn't the plan!" He grunts to himself as he notices some of the very few women from the Dauntless in the crowds. They'd stuffed their shirts and pants to mimic Tret's more closely, and some had even dyed their hair or applied their makeup with a paint roller. It had taken all he had not to burst out laughing at the sight of his observers and backup. "This is for your own good, darling," Misty declares, dive-bombing at him as a gigantic mantis porn star from hell, prompting him to dive to the side. Oh, hell no, was he going to let these crazy bitches catch up to him. He darts down an alleyway only for the gigantic mess that was the 6 snake women joined at the tails to land in front of him and pen him in, stomping the large pair of legs they share, which helps keep them upright. "You're going to the hospital and nowhere else," she says with all 6 mouths at once. It's amazingly creepy, and he turns to run the other way, but the mantis has already cut him off. "You need to calm down. You need help. Let us help you," Misty says as he looks around. The pipes, maybe. He doubts they could support his weight, though. Well, the biggest failure is failure to try. He goes for the pipes and starts climbing straight up, letting the monkey buried deep in the DNA guide him. "Are you crazy?" the Lidris demands in shock just before the pipe starts coming off the wall. Not wanting to fall the 2 stories he's already climbed, he jumps hard to the opposite side of the alleyway and grabs the edge of a window. The Hydra woman is right under him and using her massive forelegs and strong tail to slowly raise herself up. Up he goes then. He braces his hands against the opposite sides of the window and crawls up. There's a buzz, and the snicked woman is kneeling on the rooftop above him. "You've got moxie to spare, human. But it's done. You're going to the hospital." As they say on Earth, it's not over till the fat lady sings, he says, and there's visible confusion on both women. "What does that even holy shit?" the Lidris exclaims before he swings himself to the side and runs along the wall to grab the next window. A quick hand over hand and a harder throw, and he gets to the next window, which has a pipe going up it. Grab, climb down, and make for the now empty entrance of the alleyway. Then is forced to race hard as a small crowd from the bar starts chasing him and he goes to the edge of the road and looks down. This is a massive tiered city. The next tier down is a 3-story drop. He does the only sensible thing and jumps as hard as he can. Unfortunately for our escapee, the ambulance had actually showed up about a minute ago, and we're trying to figure out how to get a clearly uncooperative and injured patient to the hospital without causing further harm. The ambulance swoops down from above, and the rear door opens to reveal a deep crag Nagasha in a nurse's uniform, her rattle glowing brightly with axiom as she shakes it, and he's covered in a matching aura. His fall is guided into the ambulance where he's strapped to a gurney and the door slams shut. Well, damn. For a dude without balls, he sure has a fucking pair. A voice says, and from just under the tier, a man on an airbike flies out with a grin. Are you a friend of his?" "Kinda. We play poker. If he was in really bad shape, he'd have called for me." The man says, then starts as the ambulance flies away. "Excuse me," he says and shoots off after the emergency response vehicle. Now Misty is just plain confused and honestly rather upset. Something is up, and she's positive that she's being made a fool of, something she doesn't like. She huffs to herself as she rubs her blade arms together before turning to the young Lidris. "Excuse me, miss. Shireen of the Hexaform clan. You've heard me introduce myself as Misty, I take it? Yeah, these humans are mad, yet capable in the oddest ways. I have an older sister that works in the hospital. I think we should go talk to her," Shireen says, and Misty offers her a smile before they head off. It was a benign reaction, sir, over the top, but well-intended from what I can tell. One of the Tret women in the crowd notes into her personal comm. "Huh? Oh, don't worry, there's so much gossip going on that it would take a dedicated spy standing right next to me to sniff me out, and they'd need to learn English besides. Anyways, I'll be following some girls of interest. Corporal Yale out." "I'm goddamn fine already, let me go," he protests as he's rushed into examination and moved from the gurney to an examination table. A panel of solid, soft blue light manifests just below him and moves up, showing a wireframe of his person with red markings all over it, most of them correlating to old scars and wounds he's taken through his life, with the biggest ones focused around his crotch. The fact that there are several in his brain actually has him concerned. There's talking around him about techniques relating to regeneration before he clears his throat loudly and repeatedly to grab attention. "I know I can't stop you from using your alien techniques on me, but could I at least have a copy of the record of whatever it is you're doing to me?" he asks, and there's a pause. "Yes. We were told you were manic and unable to understand your injuries." "No, someone called it in wrong. My family is prone to a condition called cancer. This is where malignant tumors start growing in the body and destroying the organs they grow from. They're also prone to spreading. I had testicular cancer and made the choice of castration over death, as it had a very good chance of moving to my intestinal tract or maybe even brain. Unfortunately, it seems you actually have some growths in your brain. So it flared up again. Well, that's just something else in common with my father and grandfather, then, he says, letting his head slump back as he considers things before looking up at the wireframe. The red indicators of disease or damage are focused around the lower parts of the brain. Can I be allowed to use my communicator? I need to talk to some people. He's unstrapped without further questions and pulls out the device. Hello, ma'am. I've just been rushed to the hospital and it looks like my cancer's back for revenge, he says in a forcibly flat and calm tone. It's in the brain. I think the part called the cerebellum, which means it's not really affecting me yet as I'm getting around just fine, but do we have the means to extract the tumors on the Dauntless? There's a dead silence in the room. All right. Let's leave that as a backup. I'll speak with the doctors here. Thank you, ma'am, he says before deactivating the comm. He looks almost hollow before he takes a breath and focuses. Doctors, we've identified a potentially life-threatening issue. What are our options? Simplest is a full regenerative sleep. This causes the axiom to basically reset the body to the DNA's baseline. Surgeries, scars, even lost body parts are restored or taken away as appropriate, and all malignant growths are undone. So if I understand this, then this will remake me as if I never took an injury in my life? Yes, optional surgeries and calluses are unfortunately wiped away as well. A great many patients also report a period of increased sensitivity. So I get everything back, including my wisdom teeth? Dandy. Wisdom teeth? A holdover from evolution. Humans have more teeth than our mouths can hold, so the wisdom teeth are removed to make room for the rest, he says before his communicator goes off. Engineer Pike here, he says into the device. All right, I understand. The Dauntless has sent another soldier to check in on me, make sure I'm not being forced into anything, and get another pair of eyes on whatever your procedure is. I see. Military policy means that I have the final say over my own health and can refuse or accept any offered operation for any reason. He's just showing up to report back after I make my choices. He's more a paperwork runner in this scenario. I see, one of the doctors says. So, lay it on me. How expensive is this and how long will I be out? It's actually a very easy thing to do. It's time-consuming, but once it's started, a regenerative coma sustains itself on the ambient axiom energy. It even feeds you and prevents starvation or dehydration. So you just need to get me started and a shelf to shove me into. Makes sense. What's this about a shelf? The bike-riding soldier from before asks as he walks in. Way to be back up, you jackass. Pike mutters, You were fine. Hell, you were straight out Assassin's Creed, just need a hood and wrist shanker. You still could have helped, Lawrence. Pike counters using his name to drive the point home. Then you should have hit your panic button or called my name as we discussed, Reginald. Lawrence snaps back and Pike just sighs. Cancer making you pissy? Lawrence asks after a moment. It's like having a gun to your head in your head. If that doesn't upset you, then something is really wrong with you. He returns and Lawrence snorts. Fair enough. What's your plan? I'm gonna give it a shot, but we need to figure out what we need to sign so the scientists and doctors off the Dauntless can show up for observation. If it works, great. If not, I'm nearly 60 and I've crossed the fucking galaxy. I've beaten cancer once already and more than a few accidents that should have killed me without a mark. If it kills me, then we know not to do it, and you only lost one broken old bastard. You're not broken, buddy. Banged up? Maybe, but not broken. Pike gives Lawrence a smile as they clasp hands. He pulls the younger man into a half hug before letting him go. All right, ladies, what do I have to fill in to get this healing coma thing started? You don't have to be so nervous, sir. This is a well-practiced and known technique, the doctor says gently, as she would have to be blind and deaf to miss his trepidation. Not on humans, it's not. Still, let's start signing the needed forms, Pike says, standing up and then following a doctor who gestures for him to follow her. I know you're there, ladies, Lawrence says after a moment, prompting Misty and two of Shireen's heads to peer around the door. Why, ahem. Misty begins stepping through and regaining her composure. Why is he so convinced that a healing sleep would hurt him? What's with you humans? Shireen demands. What's with you non-humans? We're different races. Our perspective on things is as strange to you as yours is strange to us. As for Engineer Reginald Pike, Lawrence begins jerking his thumb in the direction the older man went. He's a bit more fatalistic than most. Sickness and accident has claimed all his family, and he's the last of them. His line ends with him, and on top of that, he, along with a good chunk of the soldiers serving on the Dauntless, were convinced it was a suicide mission. Since things have turned out well, he's waiting for things to balance out, which at this point in his head means he's waiting for something horrible enough to kill him to happen. That's just, Shireen says, before the head speaking covers the lower half of her face in horror, and another looks thoughtful. Awful. The other head finishes. Lawrence just shrugs. People deal with pain and tragedy in different ways. Pike's accepted his pain and loss and come to expect it. He needs help, Misty states. He's getting it on the physical. The mental, though? That's something that takes a while, and he's not exactly a young man anymore, Lawrence says before sighing. Excuse me, I need to make a call to the Dauntless to let them know what's going on.